Are we on the air?
Yeah, we're all good to go.
Okay, morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I can find an agenda. I'll know what I'm doing. Here we are. Okay, don't forget to silence your gadgets. We're going to do a roll call and approve our minutes, and then we're flip-flopping the scheduled presentations. We're doing the opioid task force report first, and then the land bank presentation second. So with that in mind, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Bell, Curran,
Here.
Freeling,
Present.
Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman, Majerick,
Here.
Ott,
Here.
Pitchford, Ballrath,
Here.
Werfel, here, Yarborough, Elliott.
Here,
Mr. Chair, you have 9 present, 3 absent.
thank you. Minutes from a week ago need to be approved. Moved by Ott, audibly and visually. Seconded by Volrath. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Minutes are approved. Okay, you want to do some requisitions?
I do, I would love to. Does anybody have any questions about the requisition list that was sent out? It's just mostly change orders. Okay, great, I'll pass that around. Just a side note about your agendas for next week. So by tomorrow at noon, you will have your agenda packets for next week. Then I will be back on Tuesday afternoon late, and if there's any changes or anything like that, I will try to get them out then, but if not, it might be Wednesday morning, so just make sure you check in your stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Guy Miller, you ready to give us a report?
Mr. Chair, can I offer a quick comment before as Guy gets started? To the board and to Guy, over the last couple of weeks, we've been working on getting today's presentation scheduled. And by my mistake, Guy thought he had an extra week to prep for today's presentation. So a big thank you to Guy for getting this one ready. And so you all know, Guy's department's got training going today. So we're encouraging him to move somewhat quickly so that he can get himself back over there. And I think I officially owe Guy a sandwich, a cookie, something as a big, I'm sorry for the curveball in your schedule. Guy, thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for getting me on the schedule this morning. I'm happy to present to you all what the Opioid Settlement Task Force has been working on. I think Annette gave you guys a couple of documents. One of them is an executive summary that hopefully sums up most of what I'm talking about today. And I would encourage feedback through this. You don't have to get it to me today. What you'll see at the end of this presentation is we have a little bit of time before we solidify anything that is going to require a resolution or it's going to require actual board action. So the intent for today is to present to you the information on what the Opioid Settlement Task Force has put together and their recommendations that I'm now taking to the board. So myself, as well as Lisa Peoples-Hurst, she is our public health promotion and prevention supervisor. She's been doing it for over 20 years. I think you guys met Lisa back in December when we originally notified the board of these opioid settlement funds coming in and the need to take some action around it. Lisa is at our mandatory all staff training this morning, but she will help facilitate any questions that we might have because she's been leading the Opioid Settlement Task Force at the Berrien County Health Department. So as I mentioned, this group was requested to assemble at the will of the Berrien County Board of Commissioners in May of 2023. The group was tasked with identifying a process to disseminate these opioid settlement funds in an impactful and meaningful way. Our goal is to develop a plan, so we're looking at goals, objectives, for systematically awarding, monitoring, and evaluating the distribution of opioid settlement funds through a series of strategic planning meetings facilitated by BCHD staff, which was Lisa. Our achievements are kind of the goals that we did meet in alignment with Exhibit E from the Michigan Association of Counties documents, which you'll have an opportunity to see that document as well. Berrien has successfully assembled a diverse group of Berrien County stakeholders in the field of substance use disorder and treatment. Berrien County has organized a strategy for how opioid settlement funds should be distributed with a system that considers many perspectives around substance use disorders, not just opioids. This is our opioid settlement task force. You can see it was difficult to try to keep this group small. We had a lot of people who wanted to be involved, but we knew that the more people we would involve, the harder it would be to make decisions around the table. So these people or representatives from these organizations met bi-weekly since May. Actually, our last meeting was September 6th. And we continued to meet. There were 2-hour meetings at the Berrien County Health Department facilitated by Lisa Peoples-Hurst. Our original objectives and goals and strategies that we found, I won't go too in depth into them. They are in a packet that I can get to you, but essentially they were meeting those achievements, which I mentioned earlier. And we will talk a little bit about that Exhibit E document. Comes up a couple times because you'll see that the Michigan Association of Counties is also working hand in hand with us in a lot of different ways, but they've provided a lot of great documentation, including a draft RFP, a scoring template, and I believe the 2 agreements you have that are being proposed to you too were drafted by the Michigan Association of Counties, and they were reviewed by this opioid settlement task force. So our deliverables, the OST was recommended that this is what the Opioid Settlement Task Force, OST, is recommending that the Board of Commissioners considers the following for authorization, and this can happen between October and December based on the time frame that we put together, and to start the RFP process. So open bidding, people can look at the RFP, they can send in their request with what they want to do, starting in January with the distribution of funds intended to start March of 2024. So the documents that we're bringing to you today is a request for proposal document, an RFP, an application scoring criteria document, an opioid spending plan, the Michigan Association of Counties, as I mentioned, this is the 3rd time now, Exhibit E, which really has the Attorney General's what they want to see being met by anybody that's doing work with these monies. The plan for implementation funding agreement, the funding management agreement, and then I have a separate page with Opioid Settlement Task Force recommendations. So the timeline for the Opioid Settlement Task Force and these funds, like I mentioned, we met bi-monthly starting in May through September. The report deadline with what we were trying to meet is what we're doing today. Our goal was to have all of these documents put together for you all by September 30th. And then the RFP, the Opioid Settlement Task Force, is proposing that the Board of Commissioners review its recommendations and begin the RFP process no later than January 2024, with distribution of funds in March of 2024. So some additional considerations that I would like to point out to this is we are asking that the board make decisions on the following. A review team. So a proposal review team would be really a group of subject matter experts that can assist in proposal evaluation and grant monitoring. There's a lot of intricacies in the opioid world and the substance use disorder world that we would propose that there's a proposal review team that's assembled that can help review and score these templates. We are going to need corporate counsel input. We're going to need financial services to review these documents and these processes. We're going to need a long-term evaluation team. So if you do accept the RFP that we're proposing today, and let's say it's a 3-year proposal and somebody comes and gives you a 3-year proposal, we want somebody to be able to review 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, to give the board some sense of if this work that's being done in the opioid, the substance use world is actually meaningful work. And then we are asking if there is an ongoing role to the Opioid Settlement Task Force. So if you would like to dissolve that task force, or if you would like to keep it going for any of these suggested roles, the group is open to that. In addition to just kind of those brief documents that we're getting, the Opioid Settlement Task Force as a whole kind of made some requests for the proposal review team. Projects or proposals that demonstrate. So what we're looking for in the RFP is the following things. This is what the Opioid Settlement Task Force is proposing to you guys to adopt for this to be criteria to consider when whoever is reviewing that RFP. So projects and proposals that demonstrate collaboration should be prioritized. The whole mission and really what we've been trying to focus on is to supplement, not supplant any programs within our county. Funded programs should supplement, not supplant existing programs. Utilize the proposed RFP document, implementation funding, and management agreement. Track funding using the spending plan template, which is included in my proposal today, and then continued involvement in the opioid settlement task force as an advisory role. Review board for the RFP applications, determine website platforms for public-facing materials and information, share plans or hold meetings for public comment periods to incorporate public comment, and create annual report highlights that impacts the funds or what is happening with the funds. The additional resources, and you'll notice there were a lot of areas across the state of Michigan that took this opioid settlement money. They opened up a department called something like the Opioid Settlement Department, and they started doing community health needs assessments. They started looking at reports and trying to pull in data, and they pretty much were funding full-time positions with these dollars. I hope that you guys can see through the resources that we're providing. We have a community assessment in Berrien County. We have Michigan drug-related opioid death reports that we've been analyzing. The Western Michigan University Office of the Medical Examiner through the County of Berrien acts as provides us those opioid death reports as they act as our medical examiner. My Celerity offers quick responses to opioid deaths and opioid surveillance in Berrien County. And then Johns Hopkins Principle of Fund Use did selectively target opioid spending and some recommendations out of Johns Hopkins on what to do. We've worked really, really closely with Michigan Association of Counties, and Amy has been commissioned by the state to really be a liaison to local health departments. I've had the opportunity to present kind of our work and where we've been going, and I really think Berrien County is cutting edge with what we're trying to do with the Opioid Settlement Task Force. As I mentioned, some of them just opened up a department and they were putting funding straight into funding a person to kind of do a lot of this. The Opioid Settlement Task Force has accomplished a lot of these tasks. They did it at no cost to the county because everybody assembled on their own fruition. I guess our staff who was there was paid actually through SWIMBA dollars. That was an allowable expense to allow Lisa's time to be able to facilitate those meetings, and she's a strategic planner. So we kind of lucked out with having kind of a 2-for-1 with Lisa facilitating that. So I think that's kind of it. I've got hard copies of all of the documentations if anybody would like that. I can leave them with someone. The tricky thing is here, this is a request for proposal document that has not yet been approved. Therefore, there can't be a fair application process to it if somebody in the public were to get it that intends to bid on it. So something that we had, nobody around the Opioid Settlement Task Force has actually seen the exact RFP document if they are bidding on it. If they had intent to apply for these, they couldn't see it. So I do have those documents. I don't want them released to the public for obvious reasons, because I don't want to give somebody an extra month, 2 months of an advantage to write up a plan. I want it to be pretty even. So I do have those documents. If you would like them, I would hand them out to you. I would encourage you to review them and get back with us if you have any questions. Are there any immediate questions?
Before we get there, that document you just referenced should be marked draft. Okay, so that no one has the impression it's a final document and would constitute a public record for FOIA purposes. Sorry, corporate counsel, I just read your mind.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Now, before we open up, I'd like to first hear from Julie and Terry, since they were on the task force. Get your comments before we go around the shoehorn, or the horseshoe, I mean. Whoever wants to lead off.
So I really appreciate Guy being here. I appreciate the work of the task force. There was a lot of debate and discussion, a lot of research went into this document that's going to be presented to all of you. And there was great consideration from the task force of recognizing that this was an initiative by the Board of Commissioners to be able to present something to you to digest and to consider, and that they work at the desire of this board of how we proceed from here. I think what you have in front of you is in alignment with what the Attorney General had stated the dollars can be spent on. And that is what Exhibit E is that Guy keeps referencing to. And so we really use that as a guiding document. And then also the work of the Michigan Association of Counties. There was a lot of support from the association to be able to help any task force throughout the state. And a lot of knowledge and experts went into crafting this document that you have here. We heard from the experts around the table of what they're seeing in Berrien County, and what their needs would be. And that's one of the reasons why we prioritize collaboration so high, is because really we want that synergy of working together, the handoffs from different programs, so that there is no siloing and that people truly feel supported in the work that is ongoing as they try to get themselves out of the cycle of addiction. So that's my thoughts and comments.
And I would just add, thank you again, Guy, and all of the team all the hard work that was put into this, this program all summer long. I encourage the board to digest as quickly as possible so that we can move this along quickly. There's really no reason for it to be held up. I'm assuming it'll go through PHS, through Bob's committee, and we can get this RFP approved so that we can get that launched and whatever that structure looks like to move this forward. I just want to encourage everybody to really dig into this quickly. Don't put it off so that we can move forward quick.
Brian.
Yeah, so as you, as a group, are offering feedback on the information that's been presented, something that at staff level we're going to have to finalize is which committee the RFPs will flow through. You can make the argument that PHS would be the appropriate parent committee. However, finance is the parent committee that controls the issuance of RFPs. So that's something that we will need to give some thought to. But I would say that is a secondary concern to the review of the materials that the task force has put together. Take some time to focus on that, and then we will wrap up the recommendation on where to flow these RFPs through. But just for your thinking as you move out of today's meeting, we have our first program that has just kicked off yesterday. The sheriff hosted a sit down with the MAT team that'll be working in the jail. That's a huge success. It's a big deal to be moving in the direction of providing treatment services for people that are currently housed in the jail, that as they leave, that they've got services in place so that they don't run into relapses or potential overdoses. Getting these dollars out into the system and putting them to work, if you move with some speed, you potentially are saving lives. So please take the good work from the task force, digest it, bring back your feedback at the earliest opportunity. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions, comments? Bob?
I want to express my appreciation to Guy for leading this initiative, very important initiative, and also to Commissioners Werfel and Freeling for helping with that. And I guess the only question I have is as we pour over the documents, do we provide feedback to Guy or to Brian? Or any suggestions?
To make it simple, if you send it to me, what I'm going to do is bundle up all of the emails, go through, highlight the questions, and I'll work with Guy to get you a coordinated response. And whatever questions that we get from individuals, we'll make sure that we're sharing the responses with the full board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ma'am.
I would like to know, do you have the money yet? You something you had to do by the 30th. That's this paperwork and meet with us, etc. But have you applied for the money? We've received some.
We have.
We've got so much money, I don't remember what the pots are, but it's wonderful to be able to do this work.
So Commissioner, excellent question. It is, it's a little confusing because what you're going to see is a flow of dollars over an 18-year period. We have received some of the initial payments. And what the individual settlement amounts could be paid in full at the front end, could be paid over a number of years. I will send out a link to all of you. It's the Michigan Association of Counties. They created an opioid settlement a settlement resource center. And what's really helpful is they have a drop-down bar that you can click to see exactly how much is coming to Berrien County. And that total is $7,997,000 and change. So to answer your question, we have received some of the funds. We will continue receiving funds up to just shy of $8 million.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Just a quick clarifying question on that 18 years. Is there a cadence or a schedule that is predictable?
So a lot of the payments have been front-loaded, so they are coming in. I would anticipate over the next couple of years, you're going to see the bulk of the funds flow in, and then it will start to taper off as various.
Is there a question?
I was just.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that Guy highlighted this in the presentation. One of the things that will be asked for the board to consider is that RFP review proposal team, but also the long-term review. Certainly the experts that were around the table for the opioid task force, we did have that conversation of making certain that the dollars that we're utilizing are actually achieving the objective, and how we can incorporate that expertise that we had around the table long-term to be able to make certain that the dollars are being used in a way that is effective and meaningful for the community.
It came to me, are you working with other, when you say table, who is at the table? Not necessarily the person's name, but a doctor, a lawyer, opioid user, who's at the table?
Yeah, Commissioner Yarborough, there was a list that I put up on the screen, and it had all of the partners. So I can make sure you see that sheet. But I think one of the really cool things to highlight is we had CEOs that were showing up, and they were giving us 2 hours of their time. So they weren't there for any financial incentive. A lot of them actually didn't even plan on attending it. So I think something to highlight is that the community, it's really hitting a heartstring for these CEOs to attend without a financial incentive, to show up and give their input and talk about the system. It's huge. We had a few physicians there too. It just phenomenal.
Thank you.
It's on the screen.
Thank you.
Closing comments before we get to Mr. Fetty and then get on to committees. Review team, from my perspective, would be warranted. And going forward, if we do that, just as with the task force, it would be my intent to appoint 2 members of this board to have eyes and ears in that process as well. So anyone have anything else? All right, thank you, Guy.
Thank you.
Dan.
Well, good morning, everyone. I just have a very brief matter to discuss with you this morning. Staff is asking MAC to sign today a letter of support. Bear with me here. A letter of support supporting a letter of intent that the land bank is issuing to MSHDA, indicating its intent to apply for funds in the future for homeowner repairs. That sounds absurd, but let me kind of explain what's happening here. Some commissioners will recall that up until about 2015, the county ran a homeowner improvement program that was funded by grants through the state of Michigan. We ran it for about 20 years or so. And these were small grants / loans that the county would make to various homeowners to do emergency repairs on their houses. They had to be of a certain income level in a certain neighborhood. In 2015, MSHDA discontinued that program, so we haven't run it in years. Instead, we partnered with the Federal Home Loan Bank out of Indianapolis to provide a similar program. And it's pretty robust. In fact, I think we've done about $225,000 of work just this year alone. In any event, Mishta has decided through some of the ARPA funds and remaining CARES Act funds and so forth, that they want to restart that homeowner grant improvement program. And they've invited county land banks to apply for it. The applications are not due for at least another month or so, and we're not quite certain what that application will look like. But in order to get in line to receive the funding, the land bank has to issue a letter of intent saying, yes, we intend to apply for these funds. Please hold a spot for us. Mishta has told us that they will not accept a letter of intent from a land bank unless the chief elected official of the incorporating local government, Board of Commissioners and MAC, sign a letter of support for the land bank's letter of intent to get itself in line for a future application for homeowner funding. So you gotta love bureaucracy, right? Anyway, the reason I'm talking to you about this is that, I mean, MAC has always generously signed letter of supports for the programs we're looking into, but with the caveat that he wants the full board generally informed of what's happening. So that's what I'm here to just explain to you, the process that we're in right now. The application process will start a month or so from now.
Yes, sir.
Ignoring the bureaucratic shuffle, does this have to be a home owned by an individual, not a landlord?
This is home ownership.
Okay.
And what we do, and it'll be similar to what we did in the past, we will make small loans, $10,000 to $15,000 loans for emergency repairs, and then attach it on the house. Loan is not payable unless the property is invaded. So if the owner dies, goes to probate, or is sell it prior to that, the county's entitled to receive the equity back in return. We put that into a fund we call the program income fund. And we use that to continue funding existing activity. So even though we haven't run the program since 2015, we're still receiving that program income from homeowners. In fact, this year, I think we did about $30,000 of repair projects using just that income that's coming back to the original program. So we'll do the same thing here and continue to recycle that money over time. And we're probably going to be asking for up to $4,000, I think. Some of that's going to go into benefit for
May I
Ma'am,
ask?
yes, ma'am.
Yes, you used to set areas where you worked. Will
Right.
you do that this time?
Yeah, I believe we're going to have to do that. We used to have to establish neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And there was kind of a sequencing, like this year neighborhood one, this next year neighborhood, and so forth. We can't do any work with this money within the city of Benton Harbor, the city of Niles. They're considered entitlement communities, and they receive their own independent funding for this. So we'll look at communities throughout the county. And typically what we've done in the past is look at census tracts and poverty levels within census tracts and try to target those census tracts that have the highest level of poverty in them. So for example, it's unlikely the funding is going to go to, you know, a neighborhood in St. Joe that has very high property value. It's going to go somewhere with lower property value where there's more financial need for the assistance.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Anything else, Dan?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Do you have anything?
Yeah, so this is not on your agenda, but we do have Mark from the road department here. I've asked Mark to just be here in case there's individual questions about the jurisdictional transfer of the Napier section from MDOT to the road department. So Mark is here in case you want to chat with him. You can do so in the committee of the whole. If you want to have a sidebar conversation in the hallway, that's certainly fine. I just wanted to alert the group that he's here in the room, and I've told him that it is a successful meeting if no one talks to him, and that the transfer flows through as a consent agenda item.
Go ahead. So I was just talking with corporate counsel about an important matter. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
No,
Did you have something?
yes.
Let's proceed.
It's,
And by the way, happy birthday.
thank you
belatedly.
so much. Thank you all for signing this card.
You guys move the mics closer to you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
If I get you too loud, you get feedback.
Thank you. I'm reading a lot and I was excited about Napier being narrower, but is that going to be held off and it's kind of, this is connected?
So ma'am, the instructions that have been offered to the road department is the plan set before any assumptions are made on what the final plan will be is an active engagement of the stakeholders. That would include the property owners, Lake Michigan College, the admin committee, and then ultimately a briefing to the Board of Commissioners. I've tried to say in the nicest way possible, staff should make no assumptions on what the final design will look like until the consultant has had a chance to really go through, analyze the traffic data, analyze the anticipated traffic data over the coming years, decades.
Yeah.
And that a communication has occurred with the admin committee, their parent committee, and then ultimately a briefing to the full board. So with respect, I'm telling them, don't make any assumptions, and I personally am making no assumptions on what that final product will look like.
Thank you.
The only thing we know is that Robert Harrison Drive will remain no matter what we do.
Beautiful.
Boulevard, okay. Sorry,
That's beautiful. I see a Cracker Barrel out there.
yes. Any,
Took a
and,
long
you know,
ways.
along that same line, if we move more of our facilities out there, if there's increased commercial development
Yeah.
and some of the land is prime for that, being between two highway systems, that would, I think you can safely say, increase traffic. And it's no longer considered a trunk line if it is no longer state-owned. But the trunk line purpose wasn't simply to funnel traffic over to I-94. And we want to be deliberate and thoughtful about it, because if we take out all those traffic lanes and then later find, gosh, we need them, it's on us to put them back versus maintaining what we have. If we rip it out, redo it, change the shoulders, and then later find that that we want to put it back. I want to make sure, I think we all have an interest in making sure that we're not only thinking about how tall that tree is when we plant it, but how tall it's going to be 20 years from now. So anyway, anyone, Mark, you have anything to add?
I'm just here to, excuse me, I need a microphone. I would say that what I would like to add is that we are currently in the middle of conducting the traffic study. The ideas that were talked about during the previous meeting were just tentative, based on partial information that came off the traffic counts. I would reassure the board that no final decisions about design, that was not the intent. It was just, the only intent was to give a preview of which direction the data is flowing and what could be.
Okay, and to be clear, a substantive change in the layout of that stretch of road, I would anticipate would be reviewed and approved by the admin committee and brought to the full board for action.
Is that I haven't crossed this Rubicon on this level of project yet, but if that's the procedure, then we would
For this
absolutely
one-
follow it.
For this one, I would say it is. So, anyone have a problem with that? Okay, that way we all are playing off the same sheet of music, so. Okay, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Public comments. Okay, that took quite a while. Let's go to other business. Anyone have any? All right, we'll come back at 10:30.